Hey, friends, welcome to the house. Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with you. Glad to welcome you back into the house for another fantastic episode with two of my favorite Montlick injury attorneys in the house with us today. Stay clear. My rear is near. If you've ever seen that on a bumper sticker in front of you, you've got a hint that maybe you're following too closely, and it's a big fat hint of what we're going to be talking about today. First, let's introduce you to these attorneys who are so dapper and dashing next to me today. Let's start off with Joel Roth, whom I haven't seen in a month of Sundays. He was with us on that fabulous premises liability show. Hey, Joel.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing okay. So if I remember correctly, Joel, you're a New York native. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Yes.
Born in the Bronx, grew up and lived a good part of my life in Yonkers until I relocated to Atlanta in 2001.
What in the heck brought you to Atlanta?
My wife.
Yes.
She was originally from New York, too. She moved down in 86, and we were introduced by a cousin of mine in 99, and the rest is history, as they say.
I love that. And it was love at first sight.
Yes.
Yes. Was it
Very
really?
much so, yes.
Aw, that's so romantic. Now, you went to school at Manhattan College, right? Benjamin Cardozo
Manhattan
School of Law?
College undergraduate and Benjamin N. Cardozo, which is part of Yeshiva University School of Law, which is in the Greenwich Village section of Manhattan.
Now, do you want to tell us how long ago that was?
Well, it was in the 80s. I graduated from law school in 85, actually.
Now, one of the things that I know about you, and I think it's actually kind of something that you and our other guests share in common, there is a familial reason that you were inspired into law, in part.
That is correct. My uncle Arnold Becker was an attorney. He primarily practiced either as a partnership or as a single practitioner. He was based in Rockland County, New York, which is a northern suburb of New York City. He was the first public defender of Rockland County, and he represented similar to legal aid or the public defender's office. And I worked for him 3 summers when I was in college. That would have been 1978 through 1980. And I did a lot of different things. Back in those days, there was no computers. You did research, using books. And you filed papers, physical papers with the court clerk. So I did that, and it sounded like a really, really interesting, fun thing to do. And that's really the motivation behind me becoming an attorney.
You knew it when you were just a kid.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I want to ask you about what I have learned is one of your daily motivations. This quote by Casey Kasem.
Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. That's, you have to look at everything in life like that. Be humble and about what you do and your goals, but keep reaching for as high as you want to reach for all your goals.
Beautifully said. And sitting next to Joel is, like I said, another one of my favorite attorneys from Montlick. He is Michael Rubin. I always call him Michael Never Give Up Rubin.
Thanks.
The N stands for Rubin. How is it going? I haven't seen you in a month of Sundays either, it seems like.
Yeah, I know. It's going fantastic. It's great to be here and be a part of this again and see your smiling face, and everyone can hear your beautiful voice. And I'm just happy to be here next to Joel and give information, hopefully some useful information for people.
Steering clear of people's rears?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's probably about 50 to 100 jokes. We won't make them, but they are called rear end crashes, and that lends itself to some comical.
So as I mentioned, you also were inspired into law by somebody in your family, Michael.
Oh, well, I mean, my grandfather was the main person who practiced law in Charleston, South Carolina for like 55, 60 years. But, I mean, my uncle practiced with him. My aunt practiced in New York City forever. She was a divorce attorney, but she also, before that, worked for many public organizations that would help people, such as like an Anti-Defamation League, American Association for Justice. She would do a lot of those things. So she was a lot more into that kind of public service. Mm-hmm. Whereas my grandfather, he was a real estate attorney, but I got to see both sides and I got to see different things. And basically the underlying theme was just helping people. So
by the time you went to University of Maryland and New England Law, did you know that personal injury was going to be where you wanted to be?
No, not necessarily. I think that when you graduate from law school, like graduating from high school or technical college or college, you want a job. And most of the things that I were looking at were on the side of the plaintiff side or the victim side, as opposed to representing nameless or faceless organizations or things like that. I just felt like there's not enough of us that fight for the little guy. And it just being on this side allows the opportunity to do that. Now, that doesn't mean everyone doesn't deserve, including those people of defense, but it's just that I feel more comfortable helping a victim than I do helping someone try to get out of something on a technicality or something else. So when I saw all of those things, getting into the law, in law school in Boston, I worked for an attorney who did personal injury. And then I also worked for a firm that he would also use for his litigation or filing suit, things like that. So I would work at both places and get to experience it. But that's what I knew, and I knew how to do that. And it was interesting. And the idea of going to court always intrigued me. And I enjoy going into a courtroom and the formality of it. It's about the only place where you still have to be so formal. We're sitting here now. Joel looks very dapper with his tie, but I don't have a tie on. I do have a jacket, but I'm in court. I wouldn't walk in like this. There's just no way.
Collar would be buttoned. Tie would be just
tie.
So perfect
haircut. I'd probably bathe or shower within a few days prior.
Is that what that smell is?
Yeah, no, that's not me.
Kidding. Thank you so much, Michael Rubin. And we know that you have been very successful, both of you, in your career. So thank you so much for taking some time and being here with our listeners and viewers to come to the House, Lawyers in the House, and educate us a little bit today. We're talking, as you heard, about rear end crashes here on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters, and let's just jump right into it. I think we should start off, guys, with maybe a primer. What everybody should know about rear end crashes. I'm going to start off with a little statistic. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration says rear end collisions accounted for 27.8% of crashes in 2020, some recent data. That's close to 1 out of 3, more than 1 out of 4, getting closer to 1 out of 3. Those are pretty big odds for the chances of somebody being in one of those.
Yeah, I think I would probably think that number's low.
Really?
Yeah, I would think that there are a ton of people who get in very minor rear end collisions and they don't even report them. I think it happens way more than we even think about because it's just so common because the way our highway systems and roads are set up, you drive behind a vehicle. We're not staggered. So you're always on the road behind somebody. It doesn't matter if that person is 4 miles ahead of you. There's always going to be a car in front of you on that road at some point. So if you fall asleep, as an extreme example, if that car stops it breaks down, you're going to hit it eventually if you're not paying attention. So that's an obstacle. So anytime you look away, and we were talking about this earlier, if you look away, let's say you have a Coke or a Pepsi or whatever in your cup holder, and you go to grab it, and you're looking straight ahead, but it's like not coming out, so you look down to grab it. Well, you're going to travel quite a distance, and I think we were saying about a football field in a very short amount of time. Well, what's on the road there? It doesn't have to even be another car. It could be an obstacle in the road, or sadly, it could be a person, but you're not going to see. So if there is a car there, you're going to hit it. And it's just the most common incident because of, at least in my opinion, of how we drive right behind each other. And that just
because
means
in Metro Atlanta, don't we see that people are so often following too closely?
Yeah, sure. It's 1 car length for every 10 miles an hour. That's what you're supposed to. So
you're supposed to leave that gap between you and the next car. And how often do you see that on the interstates here?
I'll give people the benefit of the doubt. 10%.
10% of the time. Okay, so that means 9 of us.
Not on 400 though. Unless
9 of us are not
by.
doing what we're supposed to do. So Joel and Michael, do you think that you see more rear end crashes than anything else in your practice?
That would be a correct conclusion, Veronica. I mean, I've been at Montlick for over 21 years, and I dare say that the majority of auto accident cases that I handle and speak to potential and actual clients are rear-end collisions. I mean, that is by far the most common kind. And as a matter of fact, the Georgia State Legislature, in their infinite wisdom, devised a statute, which we know as 40-6-49, which is the following too closely statute, which really addresses that issue. And that essentially people that do the rear-ending, it's in the discretion of the police officers, but they often will be charged with a violation of that statutory provision, following too closely.
Yeah, I would love to get into that because I'm wondering how often, maybe I can ask you guys later down the road, is it always the person's fault who's in the back?
No.
See, that sounds intriguing to me. So what causes these rear end crashes? Following too closely, as you said, that's one of the things. What else do we have? You can be distracted, like you said. You're looking at your
ice.
You're looking at your Coke. You're looking at your phone.
Yeah, weather.
Sure.
I mean, that one car length, 10 miles for every one car length, if it's raining, and especially, I don't know how many people know this, but when it first starts to rain is the most dangerous time because that's when the water hits the pavement and it doesn't mix with oil. So the oil will rise to the top. So in the beginning, it's of a rainstorm or a drizzle, it's going to be much more slippery than after that water has had a chance to just be water instead of mixed with a lot of different pollutants, let's say.
Yeah.
So there's just so many. A dog in the car. Distractions are the number one thing. I mean, that's just because people aren't paying attention. If you pay attention, you can't avoid everything, but you're giving yourself the best chance.
The best chance to avoid everything. Aggressive driving, people zipping in and out of traffic. Maybe they underestimate how far ahead somebody's going to be, and then they suddenly have to stop. What about brake checking? Let's get into it.
Ooh, I was thinking that. That's
Yes.
funny you said that. Yeah.
What about brake checking? Somebody's trying to teach you a lesson because they think you're too close, and then they, boom, slam on the brakes and try to get you to hit the back.
Happens all the time. Happens to me. I mean, it just that's what's so scary in driving in Atlanta. I mean, and I live here, and I've lived here for almost 25 years, so my experience is more Atlanta. But if you have somebody that thinks you're following them too close, they may slam on their brakes, and then if you hit them, they're going to say it's your fault, and you have to try and prove the other way, and that gets to are you always at fault when these things happen.
Joel, we're going to start talking about something in a little bit, but I want to bring you and your physics knowledge into the conversation because I know that your first advice to somebody would be to get checked out as soon as they've been hit from the rear. And maybe if you've hit somebody from the rear too, although that might not be your case, right?
Well, that's definitely the case in both situations, although the majority of people that call are the ones that are actually hit, not the ones that are doing the hitting. But, whether it be a minor impact or a severe impact, the impact of the vehicle against your vehicle will cause your body to go forward and then whip back.
Let's talk about that coming up, and it's going to be, let's say, the 8-letter word that's sort of a dirty word when it comes to rear-end crashes and personal injury. Stay with us on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Montlick Injury Attorneys Michael Rubin and Joel Roth. We're talking about rear-end crashes, and I told you there's an 8-letter dirty word when it comes to the injuries that can come often as a result of rear-end crashes. We left off talking with Joel, who was describing the physical impact of a rear-end crash.
Yes, essentially when you have a rear-end collision, the force from the rear-end collision will initially cause the occupant of the vehicle, whether it be a driver or passenger, to move actually backward, and then they go forward, and then they go backward. It's like 3 different motions, all, one right after the other. And the technical terminology for that is whiplash, and that's your 8-letter word.
But why do you guys hate the word whiplash so
Whiplash
much?
throughout history has had a negative connotation. It really has. And I'll use an example. Way back when I was a kid, there was a animated cartoon called Dudley Do-Right. And Dudley Do-Right, the villain, was Snidely Whiplash. And he was a stereotypical villain. He wore a long black coat, a black hat, and had a long black mustache. And that was sort of, in my book, the characterization of whiplash, something that's not very nice and very negative.
Insurers try to say, "Oh, it's just whiplash. They don't need a big check from us." Yes?
Well, whiplash, it's like a catch-all term. I mean, what is it? It's not. Is it really a medical term? Like, oh, you fractured your humerus or your tib fib, or like it's whiplash. What does that even mean? I think, there was a movie called Whiplash, and I think it's about music. So it's like, everyone is confused. I think that, if you think about it, is that whiplash is really the motion of your from your shoulders above going in any direction, back and forth, side to side. But one of the more important things in talking about us is, well, what does that do? Well, inside your head is a brain. And that brain wants to stay stationary. Mm-hmm. But if your skull is going forward or backwards, if the impact is hard enough, it's a wall, and the brain can hit the side of the skull, things like that. So I don't think whiplash gives it enough, I would say, credit for how severe it could be.
It doesn't seem like a serious enough term, especially because some people will try to give this negative overview of it and say, well, it's just a little whiplash.
Right.
It's just, but soft tissue injuries, which are often what we have here, those are very real, and they can be very painful, and they can be much longer lasting than some other injuries. I was reading about someone who was in a rear end crash. She had a whiplash type injury, and I think there's a need to make sure that you understand a whiplash type injury, because as you said, you can describe that whiplash as the motion,
right?
But it's not a diagnosis. Dr. Griff Jones, who is a Presidential Award winner for excellence in science teaching, described it like this. During a rear-end collision, your car is propelled forward along with your seat and torso, but your head, if not well supported, will lag behind because of its inertia until your neck reaches its limit, and then it whips your head forward. Imagine that at whatever speed you're going.
Yeah.
On the roads here in Metro
That was
Atlanta.
a lot more eloquent way of putting what I think I kind of was getting at, but that was the scientific term. But yeah, it's extremely traumatic. And the only way you're really ever going to know, an x-ray is not going to show unless there's a fracture. So some type of MRI or similar type of CAT scan, that's the only way you're going to know. If you're feeling pain longer than a few days, something that's a little more than just a nagging pain, the MRI is the only way you'd ever know if there was damage.
Again, the importance of seeking medical treatment, and don't let anybody minimize your injuries by telling you it's just a little whiplash. Coming up next on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB, fact versus fiction when it comes to rear-end crashes. I'm Veronica Waters. Stay with us. Hey, friends. Welcome back to the house. Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Montlick injury attorneys Michael Rubin and Joel Roth. If you missed any of the first half of our special show about rear end crashes, I say it's a special show. Every show is a special show. Then make sure that you just follow us on YouTube. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform. We are everywhere. And remember that you can always send us a line. Check out lawyersinthehouse.com. Send us an email there or hit us up on social at Montlick Law any day of the week. Rear end crashes. Joel and Michael, I said that we were going to tell people a little bit about the myth versus the truth in rear end crashes. I'm going to just guess here, could be wrong. People think they're not a big deal.
You're exactly right about that, Veronica. That is the common wisdom that people see, for example, front-end collisions and other types of collisions, which is etched in their mind that there would be a severe injury. But with rear-end collisions, the general public who is not familiar with the whole process will come to the conclusion that they're the least serious. but it could really be further from the truth. I mean, even a minor impact in the back could cause the motioning of your body back and forth that was alluded to in the previous section. And that could cause, severe injuries to your spine. It could cause an injury to your head, to your brain.
When you think about how a car is structured, the back bumper is probably going to be the most secure place in the car. The trunk's back there. It's flat. So if cars hit, let's say it's a flush hit between the rear car and the front car, it may not leave that much damage. But I can tell you the person inside of both of those vehicles felt quite an impact. But if that same wreck were to happen where it was on a corner, let's say the front of that car hits the back left corner of the vehicle, well, that's probably going to cause a lot more damage to the vehicle. But did the person feel any different of an impact? Probably not if it's the same speed, physics. I mean, their body will move differently, but it's still the same impact. But the damage is different on the car. And people have a tendency to look at a car and say, how could you be hurt? The car it just has a scratch. But that's not fair to these people because it's trauma.
And the car is designed to absorb the impact.
Crumple zones, everything, yes. And the crumple zones are front and back as opposed to on the sides. Now, they do have different protections and things, but they're designed to absorb the impact. But that doesn't mean that it takes away the impact from the driver. Now, of course,
it helps, but it's not a cure-all.
Right. And one would imagine that we've come a long way. But again, one of the reasons that we've come a long way is attorneys like Ralph Nader and people a long time ago. If they didn't hold people accountable, they would put profits. How much does it cost us to pay the lawsuits if we don't fix this? Oh, that's less than if we fix it. And that type of decision, corporate decision, doesn't take into account the real people who are using their products.
You remind me of talking to managing attorney Alan Saltzman over at Mottlich. He is a bit of a crusader, and I think that's exactly what inspired him into law, too, wanting to fight, as you guys actually said, for the little guy and hold big corporations responsible for those types of, gambling odds decisions that actually have real people on the other end of them. Any other rumors versus realities?
I mean, I think that for the biggest rumor or biggest thing would be medical attention. People just think, well, I was in a small little rear end and my neck hurts a little, but I have neck pain once every month anyway. You didn't cause this pain. Someone else did. And if you don't have it checked out and weeks later you're feeling worse, much worse, it will be difficult for you to prove that the pain you're feeling now is from something weeks or months ago. So if you're feeling pain after any type of wreck, I don't care if you think in your own mind, oh, this was minor, but if you're feeling pain, you need to have yourself checked out. The worst thing that would happen by doing that is they say, oh, you're fine, and you go away and you're great. The best thing, in a sense, would be that you did that and they found something that you otherwise would not have known if you hadn't.
Because you were trying to wave it off and say, this isn't a big deal.
Right.
Joel, do you have any cases like this that sort of have stuck with you over the years?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I've had several cases over the past few years with rear-end collisions. There was one from back in 2022 where my client was the middle vehicle in a rear-end collision. By the middle vehicle, I mean this was a three-car collision, which my terminology is a domino effect, essentially. And with the rear-end collision aspect, the person had both cervical and lumbar disc herniation, which is a serious injury to your neck and a serious injury to your back. It's more than just a strain. And I've had several other cases over the past couple of years with rear-end collisions causing disc herniations. And disc herniations are serious in the sense that oftentimes they require surgery to correct. And if they don't require surgery, they require epidural injections or other types of injections, which are extremely painful.
Wow. So once again, the importance of now in that case, nobody's going to be avoiding medical treatment for that because they're not trying to wave off that kind of pain, right?
One would hope that they're not.
Yeah, because I think so many of us are, we're busy. We don't want to take the time. We don't want to worry somebody. We don't want to whatever it is. We don't want to pay the copay. I don't know what it is, but we're like, oh, I'm sure it'll go away. But your back is a major thing. Your neck is a major thing. Your brain's a major, and you can't dismiss these headaches, these backaches, this strain. Sometimes if you have whiplash, you can't even move your neck from side to side. And I know it's not a medical diagnosis. Forgive me for saying whiplash, but if you have a whiplash type injury,
right,
then it's going to you can be so stiff that it's hard to move.
Right.
And so to understand that rear end crashes could account for almost a third of the crashes on the road, you also need to understand that they are super serious. They
Sure.
are super
Yes.
serious. It's not just something that you wave away. Sometimes they might be. My friend Kobe was in a rear end crash. I don't think he was very hurt.
Right.
His car got totaled, though.
But somebody else, maybe not as physically fit as Kobe, even though I've never met him, may have been hurt. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So
What story jumps out at you? What case jumps out at you, Michael, when we talk about these?
Well, it's a more of a this is one of the rear end kind of crashes that you might not necessarily think of.
Okay.
So a good Samaritan stops on the side of the highway to help somebody, and then so they're behind a vehicle. Then a tow truck comes, like a Hero unit. I don't believe it was Hero, but a tow truck comes and is now behind him. So we have a broken down car, my client behind that car with all the proper lighting, then the tow truck behind him. So that tow truck also had flares and things. Someone not paying attention hit the back of the tow truck. That tow truck then went forward and hit the car in front, and unfortunately, the victim was in between.
Oh, no.
And he did not survive because of the fact that it's such a major impact.
That's
and
heartbreaking.
it's horrible. And I think, all of these wrecks are, and when Joel was just talking about a 3-car collision, that person's going to feel 2 impacts if they're in the middle car, because they're going to get hit, and then they're going to hit something else. So there's so many factors that come into play. And here in the case I just referenced, you have someone that didn't have to stop. He's just doing a good deed, trying to help somebody, takes all of the proper precautions, including warning cones, flares, but it didn't matter. And I think that, as a side note, just based on this, if you're in a situation where your car is broken down or anything on the highway, stay in your car. Because as soon as you get out, you're putting yourself at such risk. The car at least will be a shell around you. But people, just take a look the next time you drive. Don't be distracted while doing this, but take a look and see how many people
Don't
are
rubberneck.
how many people are on their cell phones. How many? It'll be way more than you think.
Yeah, we not too long ago, I had a story. AAA was talking about the risk to roadside workers actually is much higher than than was actually first recorded. They said it's the number of roadside workers who are killed in crashes is 200% higher than first reported.
Yeah.
And that is incredible. That's an incredible statistic
It's
to
like
realize.
hazard.
It's so dangerous over there. So, and this wasn't even a guy who was really necessarily working over there. He's just on the side of the road, but it shows you how much dangerous that space is in that arena. Do your airbags go off if you're hit from the back?
They can. It just depends on the vehicle. Most of the time, the airbags have different sensors that will have them release, but they can. And when an airbag goes off, that's trauma in and of itself. I'm sure Joel's had clients that have had injuries.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the front airbags would not go off, but you have now, some cars have side airbags. I mean, they've improved the technology where more and more of the vehicle, more and more of the passengers will be covered potentially by airbags.
And then I could get injured from the airbags.
Oh, yes.
Too, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
So I could have like several types of injuries from the same kind of
Right.
accident, rather.
That
I
is
don't know
correct.
if type is the right word, but yeah.
And you'll be burned. Like these
Oh, yeah.
airbags explode. That's how they
Yep.
inflate so quickly, is it's an explosion. So with any explosion, there's got to be a mechanism to make that happen. People, more often than not, will be burned. Now, these burns usually are not severe, but they can be burned. The airbags can cause sometimes more damage than you would think, but still going to be a lot less damage than if you didn't have it.
Yeah, a lot less dangerous than the alternative. Not to mention the dust and stuff that you're breathing
Inhaling.
in from that.
Yes.
Yeah, that can't be. You know, my very dear friend Jenny Hardy, whom, as you guys know, directs the public service program that Montlick has about driver safety called I Ride Safe. And if you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out online at iridesafe.com. It is full of really good information about keeping you and your family and your loved ones safe on the roads out there. Jenny taught me not to sit so close to my own steering wheel. She said, we were in the car one day together, and she said, you're way too close. You should have the length of a piece of typing paper in between you and your airbag if you can. And I said, okay, Jenny. And ever since then, I have made sure to drive that way. And it doesn't affect how far I am from the pedals. Now I'm 4'11", but my car is also pretty tiny. But she did. But I remember her words, and I keep my seat in that position. There are just so many things to think about: protecting yourself from the front, from the back, from the sides. What we can do to keep ourselves and everybody else on the road safe. Something that always needs to be top of mind. Coming up on Lawyers in the House with Montlick, the Montlick closing argument. Do not miss it. You are back in the house, Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with attorneys Joel Roth and Michael Rubin. It is time for the Montlick closing argument. We're talking about rear end crashes today. And guys, the floor is yours.
The closing argument today essentially is stay safe on the road. And the main thing there is, as we discussed throughout this broadcast, do not follow too close. If by chance you are in a wreck, then you can always call 1-800-LAW-NEED. And it doesn't just have to be from the state of Georgia. Montlick is a national law firm. So no matter where you are in the 50 United States, you can call that number and get a free consultation.
Yeah. And it's important that you do get a consultation, because you never know what someone's going to do. A lot of times crashes like this can be he said, she said. So you really want to make sure you have someone on your side who can advocate for you in a proper way. And, you know, the I Ride Safe website is an amazing thing to go look at. I have my children, when they were driving, look at it. It really is important for you to go and see the things that are on there. And even if you only took one thing away from it, that's still one thing more that's going to help protect you. But I promise you, you'll take more than that away from that site. Overall, just be safe. You need to keep your eyes front. Obviously, you can look in your mirror side to side, but you need to keep your vision and your attention to where it needs to be, because you're driving essentially a weapon, a missile in a sense, down at 80 miles an hour, 70, 60, whatever you're going. And if it hits something, it's going to react like that.
Yeah, I think it's also important that we think about, as we sit here, we're speaking in Georgia, and I know you guys do cases all over the country, but we're in Atlanta today, and I think we should shout out the laws that we have on the books here in Georgia, the Move Over Law, which is designed to protect people, particularly emergency vehicles on the side of the road. That law says if you see an emergency vehicle with flashing lights on the side, you are to move over one lane from where you see those vehicles on the shoulder. If you are unable to safely do that, then you should slow your speed well below the speed limit so that you can safely pass those folks on the side of the road.
Isn't that crazy? We need the law like that. Like, wouldn't it be like common sense that it don't?
It is not.
Slow down, get around. Like you have a first responder.
Here's what I believe is happening. This I don't. I think a lot of times, and I think I did something on this about when people are impaired, because a lot of times the people who are
Very much
hurt on
so.
the side of the roads, it's by an impaired driver. Also distraction, also speed. But a lot of times people their car goes where they're looking. So they're rubbernecking.
Yeah.
And then they end up crashing into somebody who stopped on the side of the
Well,
road.
there's like an old saying, like, you can't stop looking at a train wreck. Like, people like to look and see. That's why if a wreck is on the other side of the highway and there's a median, it's still going to have traffic on your side because everyone's looking and
Trying
wondering.
to see over a divided highway,
Right.
that is so frustrating.
Has nothing to do with them.
Nothing
Human
to do.
nature, nothing more.
Right. Keep eyes forward, people.
Right.
Eyes front. Thank you guys so much
Well,
for.
thank you for having us.
And you know what? One last thing. I don't want to, because of the story that Michael told us about, stay in your car if at all possible. If you're in an incident like
Wonderful
this.
advice.
Yeah. Thank you so much to Michael Rubin, Joel Roth, Montlick Injury Attorneys, two of my favorite guys here with a lot of advice. Remember, when you are on the roads, stay clear. Somebody else's rear is near. I'm Veronica Waters here on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB.